Beefy Finance is a multi-chain yield optimizer created in September 2020. And to put this term multi-chain yield optimizer as simply as possible, it's basically a platform that will automatically compound the yields or interest on the farms it supports for you, rather than you having to do this manually by potentially having to withdraw the yield and then reinvest it back into the pool and having to pay gas to do so. And you can deposit into and withdraw from vaults on Bifi at any time, 24/7. And the multi-chain part of the name simply refers to the fact that Beefy Finance operates on 21 different blockchains currently, which is impressive and is more than most platforms in the entire DeFi space. And it has continued to add blockchains quite regularly, with Beefy being huge back in the bull market of 2021. So the questions are where Beefy is now, whether it's ready to take advantage of the next DeFi bull market, and whether it's worth using. So please do like this video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to offer more content for you in future. Just a reminder that nothing contained here is financial advice. And let's jump straight in and take a look at Beefy Finance in more detail. Beefy Finance has $287 million in total value locked on Beefy at the time of recording this video, which is quite low, as we'll see a bit later on in this video. But with over 650 vaults across the 21 chains supported. And these blockchains are currently going from left to right: Ethereum, Polygon POS, BNB Chain, Optimism, Phantom, Arbitrum, Avalanche, Kronos, Moonbeam, Metis, Fuse, and continuing with the list with the last 10, you've got Carver, Canto, ZK Sync, Polygon ZK EVM, Base, Gnosis, Linear, Mantle, Fractal, and the newest one in Mode. It has a native token in Beefy, with its ticker being spelled Bifi, which I did a video on specifically back in August 2023 that you can find a link to here and in the description, because it had to migrate its token from Binance Smart Chain, now known as the BNB chain, to Ethereum and essentially start again, but maintaining its tokenomics, which are quite positive because there's a max supply of only 80,000 Beefy tokens, with Beefy not being able to mint or burn any according to its documentation. And you can only get Beefy from third-party exchanges, with most of the largest ones supporting it. And you can see here the price of the Beefy token, with the large DeFi bull market back in 2021 leading to its all-time highs, and also a dip in October 2023 following the news and uncertainty surrounding the future of its token that I cover in my other video that I've just mentioned. There are different ways of using Beefy to gain yield and compound this interest to hopefully grow your cryptocurrencies. Single assets are the simplest way, as you are staking a token into a Beefy single asset vault, with Beefy combining all tokens from all users and staking it all on the third-party platform on your behalf, reinvesting the interest received and repeating the process so you don't have to spend the time or the fees on this. You also have the more traditional DeFi liquidity pools, which is where you have an LP token because you'd need to invest 2 cryptocurrencies into a liquidity pool, but Beefy will still auto-compound the yields for you. Earning pools are basically pools in which you stake Beefy's native token, Beefy, and receive a return for doing so. And finally, Zap is basically where you're adding liquidity into a pool, but only using a single token. Beefy will then use half of your deposit to purchase the other token in that pair, add the LP token to an external platform or DEX, reinvest the interest accrued for you, etc. So this would save you from having to pay the fees or spend the time swapping half of your deposit into the other token required for that pair. And we can add some complexity here because Beefy even has its own escrowed tokens that it created that you can see here, as it's a validator and therefore receives income for this on the Ethereum, Phantom, and Fuse blockchains. And we'll look at Beefy's financial situation soon in this video. But just to explain this a bit, an escrow is basically where one party holds another's assets in custody for them. So Beefy has created these tokens so that users can take advantage of the returns from the third parties. For example, being an Ethereum or Phantom validator, which requires a certain amount of that cryptocurrency to be staked to be able to do this, which most people don't have. And in more recent news, Beefy announced in April 2024 that it's introducing its own concentrated liquidity, ALM, which stands for automated or active liquidity management. And this again is a bit more complex, but the idea of concentrated liquidity came from Uniswap to address the difficulty of the constantly changing cryptocurrency prices and impermanent loss, with many different investment avenues to choose from at the same time. And Beefy has built on this idea with its CLM, or Concentrated Liquidity Manager, and you'll see it as an option on Beefy now under CLM. But to simplify it a bit, when you add liquidity into a liquidity pool, Beefy basically adds as many tokens as it can in a 50-50 split, which is the main position, but it will also create a side position with whichever one token there's more of. So this enables all capital to be used and creates a range between the two that Beefy can use to maximize returns for users and minimize impermanent loss, because it can withdraw liquidity from its positions and then rebalance them while ensuring each user receives their share from the overall pool. So the idea here is to maximize returns in an automated way without the user having to do this very frequently, or just watch the impermanent loss increase without really knowing what to do, which is obviously still a risk. Beefy has just released its 2024 Q1 financial performance report also, that I'll include a link to in the description to this video. And it's quite detailed and is worth a read if you're interested in doing your own research on the project and understanding its financial position. But essentially, Beefy generated $927,000 in revenue, which is up over 120% from its last quarter in 2023. However, Beefy's net income, so profit, was only $3,419 in Q1 of 2024. However, given this was a $200,000 loss in 2023 Q4, this is certainly an improvement, with the most amount of income in Q1 2024 coming from its vaults on the base blockchain at over $200,000, followed by Arbitrum, Optimism, and then Ethereum, which shows which blockchains were being used most on Beefy in early 2024. For token holders, over $268,000 was returned in the form of governance pool incentives. And in terms of assets on its balance sheet, Beefy increased its total assets to a value of over $7.5 million, up over $1 million from 2023 Q4. And it shows that Beefy held over $980,000 worth of wrapped BTC, being its largest single holding of a cryptocurrency. But it also held over $2.4 million in stablecoins or stablecoin investments. And who are Beefy Finance's competitors? Well, the closest is probably Yearn Finance and also Ether.fi. But you could also argue that some larger, newer platforms like Pendle, Instadat, and Convex Finance have stepped into this space and taken some market share away from Beefy while offering other services also. Whereas Beefy Finance is more of a yield optimizer specialist, because the thing about yield optimizers in DeFi is that they'll rely on the performance of the overall DeFi space. With the more liquidity in the space, the better for yields, for token prices, users, platforms, etc. And as you can see here, the last huge bull market in DeFi took place towards the end of 2021, with some more liquidity returning to the space in 2024, as we can see here, but this hasn't been reflected on Beefy's platform or with the price of its native token yet. However, one thing you have to say is that Beefy has continued to build during the bear market, anticipating the next bull market and trying to position itself so more users come back to its platform in order to take advantage of the high yields and grow their crypto holdings. And we've seen several advantages already of Beefy in terms of how it works, but its platform is also, in my opinion, very user-friendly, with you being able to easily see your overall portfolio with the amount you've deposited, your monthly yield, daily yield, and average APY percentage. You can also choose the particular blockchain or blockchains that you'd like to view the vaults of at any one time, if you have some that you'd prefer to use or not. And there are filters that are useful, such as you only viewing stable coins, blue chip cryptocurrencies, correlated pairs, or essentially those generally with lower impermanent loss, CLM or concentrated liquidity manager, which I mentioned earlier, and you being able to view just single assets rather than pairs, if you wanted less risk of impermanent loss. When you've chosen the filters you want, you can then sort by APY, daily APY, or total value locked in that vault, which again is very useful. And when you do go into each particular vault, you can easily see and change the historical APY, TVL or total value locked in that vault, and the price of that cryptocurrency or LP token over the period of 1 day, week, month, or year. For each vault, Beefy also provides a safety score, which is a good idea, but most of which are quite high. So there isn't really a large difference for most vaults in reality. However, what is really good about Beefy is that if you go into a particular vault, it will give you more specific information on the safety of it, mentioning things like impermanent loss, liquidity, the market cap, whether the platform has been audited, and confirming that the smart contracts have been verified, etc. With Beefy actually specifically checking the security of each vault that it adds before they accept it on its platform, looking into its contracts, token liquidity, any backdoor functions that may exist in the code, the emission rate, who's holding the token, and ensuring a time lock applies, which means that platforms can't change the smart contract code until that time lock has expired, after which Beefy can just check the smart contract again. And if you click on a question mark, it will give you a bit more detail and explain what it means. And just to be clear that Beefy doesn't guarantee or look into the profit of each token on its platform, just the security, so you can lose your funds depending on what you invest in. You can also see the vault's strategy and APY breakdown in terms of how it's worked out, which is useful, as well as information and details of the assets in that vault with links to its website, smart contract, etc. On Beefy's platform, it will also give you the option to purchase insurance if that's something that interests you in the DeFi space, but you would need to check the terms and conditions carefully for any cover that you took out. So there really is a lot of information for users, and Beefy's obviously put in a lot of work developing its platform over the past 4 years nearly. I mentioned a bit earlier that Beefy has been active through the bear market and continues to build, add new blockchains, etc. But you can actually see these regular updates and activities from Beefy's team on GitHub, as you can see here. It also has, in my opinion, excellent support and information on its Discord, including a section for each blockchain that it supports, which is useful if you use Beefy or even DeFi, to be honest. With most things on Beefy quite transparent, that you can look up online, which again I think is good when compared to some other projects. But having looked at some advantages, what are some of the disadvantages or downsides of Beefy Finance? Well, firstly, given that there are a lot of blockchains, platforms, vaults, and cryptocurrencies on Beefy, including some newer ones, and some that just unfortunately won't succeed in the future. As always in DeFi, be careful when you're investing and always DYOR. Basically, don't just chase high APYs, put safety first and focus on educating yourself in the space properly. There are also some other, more general risks to using Beefy, including impermanent loss, which obviously applies elsewhere too, the potential depegging of stablecoins, tokens just falling in price, and finally, the big one would be exploits or hacks on third-party platforms that have vaults on Beefy, because even though Beefy undertakes its checks, it's impossible for it to guarantee the safety of all vaults on all platforms, on all blockchains that are on Beefy. With a specific example of this, you can see here from the 15th of May 2024, where a platform on the Optimism blockchain was hacked and lost over $20 million, with 9 of these Zona Finance vaults on Beefy in total, with 7 of these being on Optimism and 2 on Base. And finally, to end the potential disadvantages of Beefy Finance, even though it does auto-compound your returns for you over time, you do still have to regularly keep track of your investments on Beefy and the pools, etc. that you add to, which can be difficult to remember if they're just accruing interest. For example, the APY might dip, the TVL might decrease a lot, which would be a concern, and if that pool or platform ceased to operate, then your funds will just be sitting there on Beefy, not earning any interest, and no one will be able to inform you, as it's obviously decentralized. And the longer you leave it, the harder it could be potentially to withdraw that crypto, depending on the third-party platform that you've used. But that ends this video looking at Beefy Finance, and as always, I'd love to know what you think in the comments below about it. Have you used it before, and what did you think of it? Or will you check it out in future? And do you see there being another huge DeFi bull market that Beefy will take advantage of? And if you're interested in more of a tailored approach to your crypto education, and you think you'd benefit from having someone look over your shoulder and guide you on your journey, I do offer one-to-one coaching to those who have the desire and the means to educate themselves further. And there are links in the description where you can message me and book in a free video call to see if we'd be a good fit. And if you found this content interesting, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it really does help. And have a great day.